So the Queen of Swords, study this picture, for this is the tarot card pull of this month. You can see it's a queen with a sword in her right hand that points up, and her left hand is offering out, giving, and she's pictured in the clouds, which is interesting. She has a butterfly crown around her and a somewhat impartial face. So check that out for a moment, and I'll show you at the end once again. But I love this card, and I'm so happy this is the pull for this month. And the reason I love this card is because it's an incredibly empowering card. First of all, just to contextualize tarot readings, there are many tarot cards around the world. On my podcast, I have a wonderful episode with Michael McQueen about tarot, and you can hear a little bit about the history, because it's a tradition that stems in all different cultures. But this deck is a traditional tarot deck that is quote unquote European in nature, specifically from the lineage of Spain. And it's a very popular deck. It's one that's very much used in many of the Western countries as the sort of go-to OG deck, so to speak. The Queen of Swords is part of what's called the Minor Arcana. So in many traditional tarot decks, there's 78 cards. 22 are called the Major Arcana. The Major Arcana are main stages of life that every human goes through. The Minor Arcana, of which this card is more of the emotions, the feelings, and the thoughts, and the in-between the lines of life's bigger events and energies. So the Queen of Swords is a sovereign, obviously, but she really has to do with that energy of being sovereign and sometimes making what can feel like challenging decisions, because they can be coined as seemingly a little more self-centered in the way of making boundaries. So this card is a lot about making healthy boundaries. A sword, of course, can mark, like cut through things, cut through the BS, and delineate and markate land and a literal boundary. And she's also an energy that doesn't need to apologize for having her place at the table. And this is about you, whether you identify as female, male, on the continuum of gender. This energy lives within you as this quality of being able to set healthy, clear boundaries, knowing when we set boundaries, that's when our whole, like a king or queen, civilization flourishes from that setting of the boundaries. The sword is also associated in many traditions, in the tarot lineage, in the yoga lineage, with air. And the element of air has to do with intellectual dexterity, pontification, contemplation, and our thoughts and our thinking mind. So this card invites us this month to think about how we're making not only boundaries, but even various decisions from a place of rationality, not just feelings, not just reactions, but actual pausing, reflecting, even weighing facts, pulling back and looking at the big picture. For the Queen of Swords is in the clouds, and that implies that she can, like an eagle, see the big picture and make decisions from that place of big picture. So I invite you this month, when you're making decisions, both large and small, thinking about these themes of the Queen of Swords, thinking about boundaries, thinking about the big picture, thinking about sourcing, as she does, her wisdom from above her, so to speak, or spirit or humanity, and also able to act, give with the other hand from this place of her own intelligence and deep knowing that she references with one hand here. She can then give with the other hand and be compassionate even with that other hand through her left hand. So sometimes you'll read about her. She gets a bad rap. I don't really think I have to talk to you about that because often, I think most of you know, right, in history, women of great power who led great civilizations, like in Egypt and all sorts of tales in history. When they're queens and they have power, they can often, be depicted as being detached and cold, etc., from their gender. And yet we know they were great leaders. And so think about your kingdom, your queendomship, and think about your divine feminine within yourself. And divine feminine is not just soft and compassion and these ways that often society teaches us are quote unquote feminine, right? Divine masculine has soft, quote unquote, very beautiful ways of being. And this card invites us to think about that in the way of the divine feminine. How can we be strong, be clear, and yet nurture yourself? How can we source our decisions from our own intellectual weighing of decisions, seeing the big picture, and trusting our own smarts and our own prowess of thoughts? Our thoughts don't have to be a burden. Our thoughts are what helps us be discerning. And discernment is what the Queen of Swords is about. So I hope this was helpful to you. Let me show you this card again. And the other thing I just wanted to say about the sword that's coming to me now really is the sword also cuts through hypocrisy. And so the rules that are set up, the strictures and structures, she can be about really looking at them and then slicing them down. So you can contemplate that too. But she's a very auspicious card to start off with. In the tarot deck, we've got pages, queens, kings, and there is a sense of royalty and wisdom about those cards. So thank you for being here with me today, and chew on that this month. Namaste.